Yeah, today we're gonna have an interview for all the people who are with us now with Jeanne Castor. Jeanne is a Humber alumni. She graduated from the e business
Marketing,
e
e-business marketing,
e-business marketing program. Today you work as a senior marketing executive at
the Maples Group.
Maples Group, which is a law firm.
Hmm.
Right now, you are located in Cayman Islands.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's where the
It's just south of, well, actually, the Maples Group is a combination of law firm and finance firm.
hmm,
Law focus more, I guess, on corporate and financial support, not so much of like a social law firm. But Cayman Islands is just south of Cuba, and it's actually featured on a lot of like movies. Then they talk about offshore finance.
oh,
It's
nice.
not the reputation we want to be. I think it's so much more stricter, but that's how Great Grand Cayman is normally come up in the North America.
So I just gonna give a idea to the people who are watching how the interview is gonna go like. We have like a video made by Alex that I'm going to show everybody right now. Is explaining a little bit about you and the agenda for this interview.
Sounds good.
I'm just gonna play it right now. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. Oh, now we have a better idea of how it's going to be like. But before I ask you about the day in your life, I just want to know a little bit about you and what made you go to this kind of field and this program. So if you can just share with us what was it that made you go enrolling in this program of the e-business marketing?
Yeah. So just a little bit of I guess I'll give a little bit more of my background. Besides the video, thank you so much for that video. So everybody, I'm Jeanne Castor, and just like what Aldarv said in Alex's video, I am currently in Grand Cayman Islands pursuing marketing. I have over 10 years of marketing experience. I started off like you guys, studying e-business marketing, and I was, after my degree, I was able to pursue and make an impact on a small, medium to now larger company in their marketing department. So just going back to your question regarding what made me pursue e-business marketing, truthfully, it was just more of my love in computers and passion in business back in high school. And at that time, e-business marketing was super new. 10 years ago, e-business marketing was not something a lot of people have kind of heard of. And I guess just it's within me to kind of take the route that not a lot of people are taking, similar to like, lawyer, accounting, and doctors. And then I was just so interested about it. So I applied for the degree at Humber, and at that time, degree was also very new in colleges.
Mm.
So everything was like, there's so much, there's like for 50 people in the whole program on our first year, and we graduated half of that, I think was the last number, and now it completely changed. So that's kind of why I pursue that degree.
Okay. That's I think a lot of students in our program can relate. I mean, the reason you chose that degree is because you like the business aspect of it, but also wanted to go to the digital field. Same time, I think personally, I know I can relate.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, I mean, I think we're all interested of how did you got your first job once you were finishing the degree, and I mean, any tips that you have for students who, I mean, right now I'm in the second year. I think most people watching us right now are in the second year.
second year. Okay.
So yeah.
So I can really go in depth in that one, and kind of laying out my plan after college started during your year, the second year. Um, I'm sure Hanadi would be speaking more about this, but they tell you that you're going to do co-op, and I think that's still the same platform, right? You go on the work field on the third year or your fourth year, but really we kind of set you in place, kind of thinking about your future. And so that has always been, I guess in my case, when I was in your year, the second year, and really just building relationship was a key for me, starting at as early as you can, just talking to even your professor and showing them what you're capable of, and talking to, you know, people you meet in the most random places, but like cafeteria, at a bus, TTC bus, anywhere, and you just constantly networking and just talking to them, just be constantly interested on how they got to the careers that they're in now. And just going back to how I got my job, it's a really funny story, and I didn't expect how I got my first job. It was right after college. I decided to take 2 months of traveling right after, because when I was in your age, I was juggling a lot of like working and a lot of studying. And so after college, I wanted to travel. So that's the one thing I did. But as soon as I got full on in my looking for a career, I didn't expect that I was going to get my job one day going to a nearby local gym. So I went to sign up for a gym membership. That guy happened to own another digital agency, because I was telling him I was in the background. You know, I just graduated as e-business marketing, and there's not a lot of women at the time who's taking e-business marketing as well. So it was very memorable and impactful for him, and he was so interested. So he owns a digital agency, but his digital agency wasn't hiring. His friend owns a digital agency that is hiring. And so, you know, he gave me his email, I gave him my email. I mean, I gave him a resume 2 days later. 2 days later, I got into an interview. 3 days later, I got 2 more interviews with that agency. So it's a three interview process with that agency, because it's now a really big agency, but at that time it's a new agency. It's a startup. So so I didn't know that going to the gym at that time, I was gonna land my first break, my first career in a digital marketing agency. And the funny part, when I got into that agency, I was really hungry. I was just always interested in learning. I wasn't picky on what I wanted to do. I was just like, any task they're giving me, I would always like own it and research and find out about it. Anyways, two or 3 weeks after I got my first job, like my first starting job, my boss who was training me ended up leaving the company. And because it's a startup, and because I guess the owners really understand that I was really hungry and eager for it, I was closest to dealing with the projects. And so I end up, you know, meeting these big companies, presenting with these big companies 3 weeks after I started my job.
Wow.
And this is a big role, but I was always willing for it. So I guess moral story is, you know, always network, always willing to just participate, don't be picky, show your skill set, show how hungry and driven you are. And the next thing you know, the opportunities is just going to be right in front of you. And it can be stressful for some people, but if you are, you know, really interested and passionate about marketing, and especially digital marketing, you just kind of, especially you guys at such an early age, you just have to like really take on this opportunity and make it your own. So that's kind of how I started after
very cool story.
This is and similar to the other jobs that I've had after that, it was all through marketing. Even the job that I have right now in Grand Cayman, I was never aware of Grand Cayman 3 years ago. Didn't even know where it was in the map, but I got offered a job because at that time I launched my blog in a focus on marketing, and also at that time I was on LinkedIn heavily. and LinkedIn was also booming 3 years ago, and I got reached out by a recruiter. So all of my jobs following that first incident was all through networking and all through somebody that knows somebody. So and building my brand profile, your personal profile. So
Wow, that's
a lot to think about for you guys, but like you never know who will give you a job, right? You really don't know who will give you a job.
You started by going to the gym. That's
I didn't know that I was gonna at that time I wasn't fully ready to go and look for the job, but the opportunity was there and I wasn't, really picky. And now that company where I started in, I was there for 3 years, and everything I know about digital marketing, I learned from that company. And I wouldn't be in my role now where I'm overseeing 18 offices around the world without everything I learned from that agency.
right. So that's interesting because I think right now a lot of students are kind of trying to figure out what the skill set that they're going to get when they get out of this and into the field, into the industry. So you said most of the things that you feel that was really important for you to learn about the industry was once you got the job, right? I mean, they taught you what you needed to do for so
your degree will definitely open the doors, and a lot of activities like what you're doing right now, being part of DBSA, that's very big too. That makes a huge impact. Projects that you do during your 4 years in the industry makes a huge impact. So at that time, my resume, I don't have a lot of digital marketing experiences, like work experiences, but my resume about digital marketing was like almost a page and a half, because I was outlining all of my projects while I was in school. Even like my co-op was outlined there. Participation, like what you're doing right now. At that time when I was in Humber, I was also part of like a business program where I do things like this webinar, or doing presentations, or teaching small businesses how they can improve their businesses. I was doing extracurricular like that when I was in college, and that really helped my resume as well. So those are the things that makes a huge impact.
Oh, that's very valuable information. I think now that you got to where you are now, I mean, we're just interested to know a little bit about a day in your life, because I mean, at the end of the day, when we're going to get our jobs and go up, and I mean, we just want to know what is expected. What is the work-life balance in this industry? If you find that it's very similar from one job to another, and it's very demanding, something for us to expect.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, so the day in the life in a marketing world depends on your company. It changes. And, you start off with a lot of, in the previous companies that I was in, so most often it starts off with like a group meeting where, you talk about what your goals for the day, or what everybody's kind of up to for the day. And then you kind of manage your own time and do whatever that you feel like it. In my case, a lot of where I'm currently working at, we focus more on the branding of the company and making sure that the company is promoted heavily around the world. Because like I said, we have 18 offices around the world. So my day-to-day typically focus on launching a lot of campaigns, and the campaigns can be, video, it could be thought leadership pieces, it could be, a lot of it is Google Analytics and Google AdWords, LinkedIn as well, LinkedIn advertising. So a lot of paid advertising. That's sort of what my day-to-day is like. So you're there at work, it could be as early as 8:30, and then sometimes you stay till as late as 5 p.m. or even 8 p.m. or sometimes till 10 p.m. So it really, really depends. But like you said about the work and life balance, you kind of have to figure that out. Like for me, in my case right now, because I live in the island, it forces me to kind of do things outside work. But that is subjective, because when I was your age, I have no work and life balance. So because again, you have to do that in the beginning of your career. I would be on that digital agency because I never knew anything about launching a campaign. I've always been so eager in learning skills that will help me succeed, not 5 years, but 10 years from at that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So I will be at work. Technically, I should be at work at 8:30 to 5 p.m. But I remember going to breakfast networking events, just kind of getting to know industries and people in the industry and the marketing industry. And the breakfast starts at 6 a.m. So I'll be at the networking event like 2 to 3 times a week from 6 a.m. to like 7:30 a.m. And then I'll go to work from 8:30 to 5. And then from 5 to like 11 p.m. I'd be learning everything I can learn about Google. So like just learning about skills, all these skills that you can take on. And that has been my life for like maybe like the first 5 years. And then I started getting opportunities that I were able to get to choose now. Because I've earned all the skills that not a lot of people in the industry have. I was able to choose kind of how I want my day to be. And it's not till, you hit the 7th or the 8th year that you can kind of balance your life in the way you want it to be, because then you have all the skills that not a lot of marketers have. But really, you guys have to prepare yourself in the first 5 years that you just, have to learn everything.
Right.
Because when you go to the industry, when you're in the real world, you see that there's so much to learn. And up to this day, I still have so much more to learn. I guess not focused on the marketing side, but more now on the leadership side. If you want to be a manager, you need to have this certain way of leading, right? Mm-hmm. So you always have something that you're going to learn. I mean, that's also key in the industry, is if everybody that you work with notice that you're always willing to learn. Mm-hmm. That's a key point.
Yeah, that's good, especially in this in this line of work. I mean, there's a lot of self-learning that you need to do for yourself, and I guess it's more to offer for your employer. So, I mean, it varies, right? Are you doing as a digital marketer? You can do email lists, you can do related stuff. I mean, it's endless, right? I mean,
you do everything. You have to turn on and off the skills that you have. Like some days I will be doing email marketing, and tomorrow I'll be doing Google AdWords. Luckily, if it's separated by day, you're lucky, but not all the time. Like I would go in the morning and I would have to plan an event. Like what happened yesterday, we were planning a career fair event for our HR team in the morning. Then as soon as I got back to the office, I have a meeting that relates to something else. That is about launching a brand awareness campaign. So then that's like within an hour. As soon as you get to your desk, you have to design something. So you have to, like, it really changes. So your skill, you need to be able to turn on and off, because otherwise you'll struggle if you're not able to do that.
Right. So on that note, now that you described the process, one of the questions that we have for you is, what do you like about your job the most, and what do you feel like you would want to change?
Where I'm at, I really love the structure of the company. In my previous companies, like I said, it's smaller. So I had smaller and medium-sized companies, and usually our marketing team are just structured, either you're a one-person marketing team or you're a 5-person marketing team. Where I'm at right now, just in Grand Cayman, which is the headquarters, there's 15 of us. So that doesn't even include our internal creative services team and our internal digital marketing team. So from like in an environment where you're in 1-person marketing team to like almost like 40 people, 15 to 40 people marketing team, to that doesn't even include all of our marketing person globally. It's much larger, but at the same time you feel supported. So I think that's the one thing I really about my job, is that the skills is one thing. I feel like I've got the skills throughout the last 10 years of being in different marketing jobs, but having that support from your superiors, having a support from your colleagues is a big impact for the company, and that won't come with the structure. The challenge with that is communication, because now you're working with over 40 people. How do you manage that everybody is aligned? Everybody have different personality, everybody have different perspective on the way they do things, and especially with marketing, there's really no right and wrong on how you do things. It's really up to you what your goal is and what the company's goal is to make sure that you're doing the right marketing tactics, right? So that becomes a challenge, because you need to make sure you're communicating every single process that you're in, every single idea and the thought process why you're doing certain things. So the communication is really big, but then you can be really good in communicating, but the people around you might not be good in communicating. So that becomes a challenge. And if it's a bigger company, you don't get approval immediately. So you follow a certain process to get to approval. So when I was in a smaller and medium-sized company, I can launch a campaign in a matter of like a day or two. But with here, we're still launching a project that we've initially started a year ago or 2 years ago. So the length is a bit, I guess it's not something I don't like, but it's more a challenge.
I see.
It's hard for me with the structure that I'm in to say I don't like it.
Right. The bureaucracy is just.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's really up to you to how you look at things. You could hate, you get into a role where there's tasks that you wouldn't like, but you have to do those tasks, like the admin work. You obviously don't want the admin work, but if you don't lay out the admin work properly, you won't be able to execute your campaign properly. So, there's tasks you don't want to do, but they are the foundation of your campaigns. So you're going to have to do it anyways. Doing your to-do list is one thing. Like, it's just, you have to organize. You have to be really organized.
That's interesting, because on one hand, you're supposed to be able to work in this kind of you have your goals, if it's monthly or yearly, but then at the same time, it sounds like you're describing something that is very unstructured. It's your responsibility, for example, to make sure that the goals would be made, but you don't know how. You don't know. I mean, the digital marketing is so general.
Yeah. It's so general, and that's why when you launch a campaign, for us, we're very big on understanding what the goal is. Because if your goal is to generate awareness, then the tactics would be different. But if your goal is to generate leads, then the tactics would also be different, right? So, or if your goal is to just be known as a thought leadership in the industry, your tactics will change as well. So it really is it's like you said, it's a combination of their structure compared to a smaller and medium size, because everybody have different teams and that serves different purpose. It could be marketing, it could be business development, it could be digital team and creative. Right now it's in the marcoms, which is a higher arching of the whole.
I see. So it's you getting the goals from the company from like someone above, and then your responsibility is developing the strategy of how to make that, how to achieve that goal.
Yes, and you define that, because the thing with professionals is sometimes they change their mind with their goals. So you define them, you make sure they understand this is the goal that they said. And then when you do reporting, because like, let's say the campaign launched, I don't know, for 6 months now, when you provide the reporting, you remind them, this is the goal, this is why we set this tactics, this is the goal that you mentioned in the very beginning of the process. And so you remind them that. A lot of managing, the higher you are in your role, a lot of managing your own work and your own style really depends on you. You become accountable of your own task in your work. If you can do that early on in the process, even if it's a smaller business, you'll be successful in your career.
Right. So you need to be a tough person to do career.
Yeah.
You know
I
how to
think so.
handle people.
I don't think it's just marketing. I think marketing gets more of a hit because people have this perception that marketing just do everything fun.
Mm, yeah.
But really, like I hear that on a daily basis because our team is one just very laid back. So everybody think we don't do work, but nobody in the operation will be doing any of their job without the marketing, because if we don't get our company name out there, we don't generate. We are also a company that very focused on generating revenue, and so our marketing efforts is very focused on generating revenue. And if we don't provide revenue, all the operations will not have anything to work on, right? So it's a very important part of every company, especially now in this industry. But everybody have just this perception that marketing, sales and marketing, just drink and have
Oh,
fun,
wow. Yeah.
all fun stuff. But really, it takes a long time for campaigns to roll out, and you will get that. You will get that from the beginning of your career. I've heard that 10 years ago to now, because people that are in the jobs where it's very structured and very routinely, like accountants and lawyers, they think that marketing is just doing.
Yeah, that's also a very interesting point. I mean, when you look 10 years ago, you probably the world of digital marketing was completely different. So
Yeah.
for us, that would be a challenge going on. I mean, we need to know how to catch the next thing that is now happening, and I mean, to study it and learn it the best we can. Was that a challenge for you?
Oh yes, I think we could go on for days talking about it, but I remember when I got that digital marketing agency job, that very first break that I had that I was talking about earlier. I was the only woman in that company. Every presentation that I was working on, every company that I was working on, I'll be in a room of like 10 people, which is I'll be presenting and I'll be in the room of 10 people. 9 of them are men and I'm the only woman, and I'm selling them all these products about starting up their website, because at that time no one have a website yet.
Right.
Right, no one has a website, so I was selling them strategies about how they need to set up their website that isn't flashing, no graphic flashing, really structured website that costs a lot of money for the business, setting up their digital ads. You guys now, everybody you talk to probably now understand that, or a layer of understanding. But at that time, no one understands that platform. And coming from a 21 years old, little girl in a room full of 10 men, 9 men, sorry, they didn't know if they want to listen to me. So you have to have like a really thick skin. The company is going to allocate at that time about like 20 to 30,000 dollars in one project, right?
Yeah.
Why do they just give their money to some random person like me, right? So that was like a lot of challenges. So it changed from that world to now. There's luckily there's a lot of women in the industry that's now managers. My team alone, there's so there's about, I guess, 80-90% woman in marketing, and then now it's the men. It's the completely different
It
world.
changed.
I still think there's should be like equality, but at the same time, it's nice to see that no decision maker at that time that's women, to now majority of, at least in marketing, of decision maker was also women. So it's still half and half, I think. Our digital marketing is led by a male, and the marcom side is led by a woman management. So there's 50% kind of 50-50, but at the same time, that alone, the landscape of the industry have changed. Focusing on the marketing side, the tacticum side that you said, it was in a world where no one even believed that website is valuable to invest on, to now, if you don't have any website, you don't really exist, right? So within that decade, it's like a 360. So, and I think with you guys, with your industry, it will change. It may not be the exact same example, but you will see that changed as well. I think mostly heavily on audio. This is my point of view, audio as well as the social media, because the social media constantly changing the landscape. It's I don't think it's ever going to go away, but just the way it's presented could change. You know, the structure of tactics will change, the advertisement of it will change, and audio being a part of, you know, the Google Home, Alexa podcast, that will, I think, will be more prominent within the next 10 years. So you will, I think the key to your point earlier is like, how do you prepare yourself for those change? I think constantly learning what are the new things. Like even me, I know TikTok is not probably my demographic.
Right.
TikTok the first day it came out. So, you know, you just, and I'm just honestly curious how the business will benefit from TikTok 5 years from now. Not per se now, but how. And so I guess constantly looking at it, how consumers can benefit from it, people that are just having fun, and then people that are like businesses will benefit from it, will always be good for you guys.
All right. So that was good. My first question was about, I mean, what would you recommend us to do to prepare for those changes? And then I was about to lead to the next question where you partly like answered.
I rambled and that.
I mean, what according to your experience, what do you think is going to happen in the next like 10 years, 20 years in that industry? But you did it with us. So yeah, I mean, social media is always changing. I mean, the way to market is always changing. TikTok is becoming bigger and bigger. There are some people who say that TikTok is going to become the next Facebook.
It will definitely be the next thing, I think. Yeah. I know it's a younger generation, but I was just listening to a podcast yesterday where, you know, somebody's using that platform for social change. And you know, you wouldn't even think about that, but the demographics is so much younger. But everybody said that for Instagram as well. But look where it's now. I remember I signed up for Facebook in one of my classes in college, which shouldn't be recommended, but we weren't fully paying attention at what we're learning at that day. We signed up for Facebook, but look, and it was only exclusive at that time for schools. But look what Facebook is now. It's like a bread and butter for most businesses, right? You know, so and that's another key thing, I guess, for marketing. If you want to be a successful marketer, you can't just shut down ideas. You have to be constantly always learning. Just because the way you do things is different doesn't mean it's wrong. You have to be open to all this new tactics, because just, you know, going back to previous marketers when digital wasn't around, majority of those marketers that are focused on print and focus on, you know, television, they now out of jobs because they were unwilling to embrace the digital world. Right.
That's an interesting point.
If you are unwilling to learn your marketing tactics, your time shelf will be cut down in 10 to 15 years. But you want to be in marketing. If you're passionate about marketing, you want to be in marketing for as long as you can. And so for you to be able to do that, you have to be constantly just open to new marketing tactics and learning.
Yeah. So don't be Blockbuster.
No, don't be. I mean, they come around.
The people who are not familiar with Blockbuster, it was a company that you would go to and rent movies and stuff like that. And then Netflix got along and they were digitizing everything. Exactly. And Blockbuster was suggested to do the same thing, but they were like, no, I feel according to our research, people like to go to the stores and see their neighbors and rent the movies for the weekends, and nobody knows what Blockbuster is anymore or where they are. Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. Going back to your Blockbuster example, like if they adapted to the digital structure, they could be selling their movies now just like Netflix, or selling their movies now to, you know, you can purchase and rent online now.
They could have bought Netflix.
If they adapted to that one, then, you know, you won't. Look at MySpace. Not a lot of people of you may be aware of MySpace, but MySpace was way before Facebook, and they didn't adapt their strategy. They didn't change their strategy. Unlike Facebook, every year, every September, I remember they would change their look of their interface. And they did that so people will continue talking about Facebook. And they did that for the first 5 years. They would change the way people are starting to get used to the way Facebook apps and features were used. And then the next year they would change it, and everybody would be talking about it, hate it. 80% of the time hate it. But that's, I think, for me, my point of view, I think that's what made them the go-to social network, because one, they're constantly improving based on the users' data that they're receiving, what works best and what isn't, and people were just talking about them. And the more people talk about them, the more people are getting more interested about Facebook. So yeah, we can talk about this forever.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned before that you listen to podcasts. Do you have any recommendation for podcasts or books or people to listen to about the business world or the digital marketing?
Of course. I think right now, for the last 4 years, I've been listening to Gary Vee.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan as well.
That's for marketers. I think Gary Vee is really good. You have to pick and choose how you're going to absorb his content.
Yeah.
Because it changes. And he changes it based on the projects he's working and the strategies that he's working on. So if he's launching his wine library, he's focused more on like the alcohol. If he launched his sports, so his knowledge is mostly sports. He would launch things and he would focus on that. He would zone in on that. But that is his marketing strategy. So you listen to him, you focus on the points that he say, but also take those points and apply it to what's going on with your world, I'd say.
I think that's a great tip.
You can take it very literally. So one is Gary Vee. If you want something less energetic, but still sort of marketing, there's Gold Digger podcast. So that's one. And then I think right now I'm listening or reading this book, 5 a.m. Club, and I'm actually doing it at this moment, where you really get up at 5 a.m. every morning. It might be easier for you guys because you probably get up early. But I remember when I was your age, I would always get up at 4:30 a.m. and I would do my homework and readings at 4:30 a.m. And that has kind of set the tone of my whole career. But my last 3 years since I moved to the island, I've been sleeping in a lot. And so I need to get back to that 5 a.m. club or that 4:30 a.m. club. And that's the one thing that I would recommend.
Okay. Well, that's very yeah, we need a lot of self-discipline.
Yeah.
We're getting to the point now that we have like about 20 minutes left. So we're going to go to the Q&A section, which is where the people who view us now are going to ask some questions. We already have one question by Andre. He's asking, was there ever a time you launched a campaign that didn't go as expected? And if so, how did you deal with it? And what were your challenges? What was the challenges you were facing while dealing with it?
Yeah, all the time. You launch a campaign and you obviously set it up in a way where you think, you kind of lay it out in a perfect world, right? You think that, this is what would happen. So you put a process in place, you launch a campaign, but the way you manage that is from the beginning of the campaign, you make sure that everybody who's a decision maker or people that are participating or your clients as well, you make sure you manage their expectation. That with marketing, it's always a learning process. There's gonna be campaign 2.0, campaign 3.0. You're always gonna be changing the way your strategy is. Your goals are not gonna change, or maybe it will change too. But you have to constantly learn and monitor and optimize. Otherwise, your campaign won't be as successful 5-10 years from now. Or you have to constantly change it. You can't just launch a campaign and you don't evaluate. You have to launch a campaign. You look at the data that you receive, how people are embracing it, your audience is embracing it, and then you pivot and you optimize and you make the changes that will make that campaign a successful campaign. So that's one. That didn't go as planned. So how did you deal with it, and what were the challenges you're facing? You have to just gonna focus on the challenges. You will deal with it with your superiors, obviously, and your clients. But I think don't be afraid to be transparent. Don't be afraid to like let them know, the process you took and to failing, I'd say. I don't think it's complete fail. If you try and recover it and try to find a way why it failed and how you can make it a better campaign, it's not a fail. So yeah, I hope that answered that question.
Thank you, Andre, for asking. I would go to other questions, but we don't have any so far. So I'll invite everyone who's watching, if you have any question, just ask it in the Q&A section, and I'll read it and ask Jeanne, and we'll hopefully bring you enough value to be settled in with this information. But for now, I mean, I would just go back to the tips and recommendations you would have for, I guess, finding your placement, you did answer. You said you can go to anywhere you go. Basically, you just need to make connections. You need to be good with people. You need to, open-minded. Mm-hmm. But still, I mean, I guess there's a lot of pressure associated with finding the co-op. And I mean,
yeah.
What would you feel that would be the most helpful? If there is any kind of source, I mean, whether it's Indeed or Glassdoor or LinkedIn, that you would use right now or recommend us to use to find the best place to, I mean, what do you think is the best strategy for us?
Your first place would be your school. Professors, they work very closely with you. They see your work ethics. They see how you do well, the things that your challenges are too, and they know people from the industry as well. So for me, I was working with a co-op, and I worked very closely with all of the teachers. I actually, at that time, we call a lot of businesses and see if they're willing to participate co-ops. That is, I think, a program that's still in existence and support you guys. Right. So that's one. So work with the resources that this Humber College are providing, because they do have a lot of time in terms of finding which company can get you guys or would be available for a co-op. So that's one. And then two, with your professors, have a chat with your professors. I'm really looking forward to, get a good co-op that I'll be recognized, feel valuable, be able to execute the things that I've learned here, and if they know anybody. So that too. If they don't, they will keep their eyes open. They know who you are. That initiative already for you to ask is not everybody are capable of doing. So for you to ask and always willing to just have that guidance is already a good skills to have. Right? It's hard, especially when you're a student, to ask for help. So 2. 3, Indeed, obviously, but I would say more than Indeed, LinkedIn. You have to have a 5-star profile of LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. You did a project that is not within your industry, even just like a project website that you did on your own, put it as an example on your LinkedIn. Then 4th, I have so much tips that I can go. 4th, would say grab people who are in the industry that you want to be on. So for example, you want to be, let's say, I don't know, what company do you want to work for?
Let's just say Shopify, for example.
So Shopify, look them up from LinkedIn, the manager from Shopify, and ask him for coffee, 5 minutes of coffee. I've done that so many times throughout my career, especially in the early on. And just say, is there any opportunity? Obviously, you don't ask that right away, but more like pick his brains and how he get that job. Exactly what you're doing with me right now in this webinar, but on a different platform. And then at the end, it's like, I'd be willing to intern. I'd be willing to do a paid co-op. If there's any opportunity, please don't hesitate. I'll follow up with you, but please don't hesitate to let me know if there's any opportunity. Even if you don't get a job there, they will remember you 2 to 3 years from now. They might come and think about you the first time an opportunity comes up. I've got jobs through that platform before. So, that's another thing. Spending 20-30 minutes of your time, even if you don't, you learn something out of it.
Right.
So, yeah. So even if you don't, we have more questions though.
Yeah. So Millie is saying, I'm a Gary V watcher as well.
Yeah. Yay.
For implementing TikTok into a business.
How do you have some tips for implementing TikTok into
Right.
Yes. So, I kind of touched on this earlier, but you have to find out what is your goal or whatever that business goal is. And then you structured your idea of your TikToks. Like I've seen photographers do their photography tips on TikTok. I've seen people who are in the calligraphy industry filming their calligraphies. Events, I've seen events companies. Events is a massive industry. I've seen them put their events on TikTok, So, it might be tricky for industry like mine, where it's law firm and finance. It's hard to get that on TikTok, but that comes down to like understanding your audience and what platform work for that audience.
Right.
But so
probably not ethical as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you can do it, but it's just it's a fine line. There's a lot of restrictions. So I wouldn't say it's impossible to do it, and whoever succeeds really well on doing it will probably get business for the next 10 years. So that's one.
So find a way to work around it.
Yeah. So identify your goals. Understand the business. What are the goals of the business? And then put tactics and strategy around it, how they can reach for that audience, for the TikTok audience, and then implement. A lot of it is implementation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Millie, for that question. We're going to go to the next one. It's by an anonymous attendee. What's the best career decision you've ever made?
The best career decision I've ever made. I think moving here in Grand Cayman. Yeah. Because it was really hard at that time, because I was also in a really good company and it was a managerial role. Moving here, I was still in a managerial role, but it's obviously a different environment, different industry, not different industry, but different work style. And you have to kind of leave my life behind and what I'm used to. So, and away from family and all the external factors besides career would be a challenge, but you never say no to challenges. So
I agree. As an international student, I can relate.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So thank you. The next question is by Earth. I hope I pronounced that right. Parth. What would you say is the next big thing that employers look for in an employee? That's an interesting question.
Yes, really good question. I can speak a lot about this because here in Grand Cayman, there's actually not a lot of digital marketers. I would say I can count it with my own hand how many is like very proficient in digital marketing and with an experience more than 5 years. So candidates are not as available as it is in the city. So for me, I think as an employer who would possibly hire somebody, you look for not just the skills. They could be people that are have a lot of skills, but if they don't have the right culture to fit the company, you will not get the job position. If I don't see an employee or an individual that is not willing to learn, I will not hire that person. If that individual is not, always positive and just very eager and just, or a good communicator, I will also not hire that person. So you need to be able to adapt. You need to be always willing to learn, like I said a million times already. and then just a good communicator, and yeah, those are the three things that I would say.
So
And
work on your
you will not
communication skills.
you will not be a good communicator immediately. It's a skill. It's a constant learning process.
How would you recommend to do that before we go to the next questions?
It's so funny because when I was your age, I always sucked in presenting. I hated it. I would almost
Yeah.
in front of everybody. And because it always something I'm not really good at, I focused my time on improving it and how I can improve it. I took a public leadership skill course. It's a 10-week course. I took a public leadership course. Because of me trying to change that and learning that skill, I end up winning the award for that course.
Wow. That's
from not even able to present in front of like the 30 people to learning that, to participating in things like this, like, constantly participating in Humber. Humber has been really supportive about that. A lot of speaker courses are available too in Toronto. So that's public speaking side, but just for communicating, like, constantly writing, I don't know what the process and the steps that you take for your campaign, even if you don't send it to somebody, just doing it on your phone, that will improve your skill.
That's good.
What other we have so many questions.
Yeah, they're coming up.
So exciting.
So Oscar is asking, for beginners, what are the steps that we can start doing right away to learn about e-marketing and prepare to their career?
Steps you take doing right away about learning about e-marketing. There's a lot of tips. I can send it to you guys, but you can take the Google Analytics. There's a beginner, there's an advanced, intermediate, and advanced. They're all free, but they give you certificates. You can put them on your LinkedIn. People will hire you if you have that. There's a HubSpot one. It's also free. That's more in content marketing. That would help you as well. There's the Google YouTube video, I think. It's all e-marketing. That would help you. And it's about just constantly, like I said, they're all available now. You guys are so lucky. It's all available.
And they're all for free too.
And all for free. And companies I look at that. When I hire for people, I look at that. So yeah, just that would be the first step. They're easy. You can do it starting tonight.
Okay. Thank you for that question. We're going to go to the next one by Michaela. She's a president of the DBSA currently. Looking back, what advice would you give to your college self?
College self, it's a good question. Managing expectations and asking for help. I feel like when I was in college, I kind of did the right thing to be where I am now. So that's a bit hard, but it's a good question because I'm the type of person where I always want to just say yes to things. And sometimes not everything you can say yes to, but you have to be able to explain why you're saying no to those things. So those projects, you can't just say no because you don't want to do it. But why is that not feasible for you? It could be, my personal experience. It could be, in the business world, it just doesn't work for their audience, right? So it works for both business world and personal. So just managing your expectation for myself and for the people around you, and not just asking for help, because if you can't do it, other people would be able to help you in doing it. Yeah. So those are...
Okay, thank you for that question and the answer. The next question is asking if you can share with us a marketing campaign that you ran. I don't know what's your that, but
I can try and explain it without going too much details. But right now, our company is launching a 360. Well, we launched it 2 years ago, but it's a 360 campaign. So we have the Google ads, we have the social media ads, as well as a white paper, which is a thought leadership piece. So there's a lot of PR content, as well as there's some print attached to it. So it's full 360 and there's some events attached to it. So that's one campaign that we launched. And again, that involves, email marketing, digital ads, social media ads, white paper, events, all of that in one. So that's an example. I don't know if that answered, but there's so many marketing campaigns that I've launched. So many.
Next question is by Parth again. What would be some essential things to add to your resume while you are a student? That's a good question.
A really good question. So like I said earlier, group projects that you participated in, business planning. I'm sure you guys did business plan like 10 times now, probably. So right, that's a good skill, being able to write business plans for school. The certificates, if you take those certificates, those are great. Participation, extracurricular participation, like the DBSA, those are great. Your co-op, once you get placed, but I guess if this is before a co-op, then just the 3 would be good to start with. And make sure your resume is different. So you always have to ask yourself, how can your resume be different? Because if I'm the one hiring you, I would probably get maybe 60 to 100 resume in total, maybe more in some cases. How do you funnel through all of that when on a day-to-day basis, the person who's hiring is already busy? You need to stand out. My resume looks like a magazine, but that's how I stand out. So, and I also have a digital resume. So
that's a different format.
Yeah, so you let them choose. You give them option on how you're gonna stand out.
Okay, that was great. I mean, I think we have less than 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
Before we're gonna.
Millie has that question that we didn't read.
Which one?
The long one. I am trying to finish. Marketing becomes very expensive.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. Marketing becomes very expensive for business to invest in, although it is arguably the most important investment. As someone who is an entrepreneur, I am interested in opening my own business long term. However, in a competitive place like Toronto, would you say it's easier to relocate to a place where it's less competitive? It's a really good question. Yes and no. Well, actually, no. Would you say it's easier to relocate? No, it's not easier, because even if, for example, the only reason why I'm saying that, because in Toronto, I've obviously worked there for a long time. Everything is competitive in Toronto. But then you go to the island where it's 50, 60,000 people, and you would think it's less competitive, but it's actually, I find it was more competitive than it is in Toronto, because people here have a different way of marketing. You can have a digital marketing plan, but they listen to their friend more than the ads. But the social media really worked well for the island, because it's sort of listening to your friend, because if your friend posted it, even if she only have 50 followers, it's her friend, so they will go to that restaurant and they will go to that business, or that shirt that they're wearing, they would buy it, right? As opposed to the city, where there's so many more people and so many more businesses. But if you have a really good strategy and good understanding of your business, and find a way where you can promote without spending so much money, it's a hard task in itself. But you probably just need 1 or 2 clients to be really sustainable. Who knows? It really depends on your business. But I'm happy to expand on that if you send me an email.
Yeah, by the way, can we recommend everyone who's watching to just add you on LinkedIn in case?
Yeah, for sure. Add me on LinkedIn. Send me an email if you have questions. I'm happy to help.
Okay.
I've done it in the past before. Hanadi can say that. I've done it in the past.
Well, I think we got to the end.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for this interview and for sharing your knowledge and so much value for us as students right now. And I'd like to thank you and everybody who's watching. Thank you for joining us. And just have good luck. I mean, going on.
Good luck to your careers. You never know, 10 years from now, you'll be sitting in the same position as me. Or better, way better. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.